My husband's cheating with a married woman, and I hope he keeps doing it. Since our daughter was born 4 years ago, my husband and I barely slept together. I didn't feel I wanted it the first 6 months or so, but when I finally got back my drive, he wasn't into me anymore. I had gained weight, and that was probably an issue for him, or maybe he stopped loving me. A year later, I found out that he was sleeping with a married colleague of his. Now I knew why he didn't want to sleep with me. I was alone in this country, and I couldn't afford it on my own with a child. For 2 years, I kept my mouth shut on knowing about his mistress. I just took care of my baby, threw myself into work, and started to make friendships outside of his friend group. I joined a Facebook group for girls in need of friends, mostly girls new in this big city. I met amazing women, and one of them even got me a new and better job. I lost all my baby weight and more during that time because of how awful I felt about my husband's cheating. A whole 30 kilos, more than 60 pounds gone. At my new job, I met a guy and I started my own extramarital relationship. He's amazing, and he knew exactly what my situation was. I didn't hide anything from him. He was happy with this arrangement since he didn't want to be in a serious relationship. Now, 6 months later, I guess I'm the happiest I've been since I got pregnant. My happiness and optimism must have shown at home, not to mention the weight loss, because my husband loves the new me now, and he even started taking physical interest in me again. I don't need to sleep with him because I have my own fulfilling intimate life, but it's so good to feel wanted. We have slept together on several occasions, but I'm not as keen on him as I used to be. I don't know how long this happiness will last, but I intend to enjoy every minute of it because I know that all good things come to an end. When I got back my life and started being appealing to him, he started complaining that I wasn't as attentive and affectionate as I was before this whole ordeal. He wanted us to start marriage counseling because he felt neglected. I explained to him that things have changed. We are older now, we have a daughter, and we have more demanding jobs. He still wasn't satisfied, so now I'll agree to go to marriage counseling with him and maybe suggest open marriage if he wasn't satisfied with our intimacy. Because open marriage is the ultimate goal I have right now. This can lead to 3 outcomes. The best one is that he agrees to be open. We stay married and enjoy the love we have with each other and our daughter. We'll be open with our other relationships. Everyone is happy. The second outcome is he refuses open marriage and we stay like we are now. He just wants an outlet to complain about how I'm not as passionate as I was. The counselor listens, my husband moves on and keeps having his little side pieces. Lastly, he refuses the open marriage and complains about how it isn't enough for him. I tell him that we could go our separate ways because that's all I'm able to give right now. I'm much more prepared for this option now than I was 4 years ago. P.S. I don't see myself as a cheater, and I don't care what you think. Well, that's great that this original poster is so happy. I guess we're just going to ignore the fact that her husband's colleague is also married. That's something most comments on this post seem to ignore. Argue all you want about whether this arrangement of theirs is healthy for them or for their child. Say all you want that it's perfectly fine as long as both parties are happy. The issue here really isn't their marriage. From the way their marriage is described, it's hard to care whether it survives or not. But there's another person being cheated on here, and OP seems pretty cool with that as long as she gets to keep her side piece. So do a lot of the commenters. If you take that part out of it, which is really hard to do if you have a conscience, then this is still a pretty complicated issue. I'm not here to spit on open marriages as long as both people know the situation, which in this case they don't. But do they affect the child? What do you think? Leave us a comment and let us know what you'd do in OP's situation. My husband's been making mysterious cornbread all week, and I just found out why. I freaking love this man. I had kind of a cruddy start to the week, but I didn't think he noticed. Our daughter is growing a new tooth and has been so grumpy, so it's been hard for both of us. Then he started to bake cornbread. The first night I was grateful and said so, but after the second, third, and fourth day, it was kind of weirding me out. I thought he maybe heard about a neighborhood bake sale or something. But I asked him tonight, after the 7th round of cornbread, why he was making so much. So he walked to the bedroom and pulled a note out of our sock drawer. He said, "On our 4th date, you told me that when you were a nanny, you made cornbread for teething children because it was soft for their gums, and nice for you too." Then he told me that he had written that down just in case. He has kept that note for 9 years. I love him so much. This one's short and sweet. I don't know about you, but I kind of needed it after that last train wreck of a marriage. It's always nice to remember that there are still couples out there whose partners will go above and beyond to show their love with no prompting whatsoever from their spouse. Do you think the last OP's husband was baking cornbread for his married side piece? Actually, I hope he was. That would make for a pretty interesting detail. My girlfriend's creepy neighbor has been grooming her since she was 16. This weekend, I went to meet my girlfriend's parents for the first time. She made an odd comment when we were pulling into the block of her parents' house, but I didn't think anything of it because I was so nervous about meeting them. When we left, my girlfriend said we needed to talk about something. She asked if I saw the 50-plus-year-old man on our way in. I said, yeah, what about him? Turns out he had been very friendly to her when she was still around 15 or 16, and he even offered her a job at his company when she turned 18. He used to take her out and buy her perfume, clothes, etc. She said she didn't think much of it when she was younger because she enjoyed having things bought for her. She said she asked why he was treating her like this, and he responded that it was because he thought she was so beautiful. They even kissed a few times, but nothing else. She said she wanted to tell me because she didn't want any secrets about her sugar daddy. I asked her if she realized this guy was not just a sugar daddy, but was very clearly grooming her from an early age. She started crying and said she'd never thought about it that way until I mentioned it. Sick effing jerk. It's possibly worth mentioning that both the OP and his girlfriend are above legal age now. It doesn't change what happened, of course. This is an interesting situation, though, because it raises a lot of questions. How did this girl's parents not notice she was bringing new clothes home that neither she nor they had paid for? Did they not once ask where those came from? A more controversial issue stems from the girl's reaction when the man admitted that he was doing this out of more than just neighborly affection. I'm not in any way saying that it's the fault of a child or teenager when someone grooms them to become something more. However, parents do have an obligation to teach kids about these things so that they know what's happening. If this girl kissed the man instead of running for the hills, then it seems she was never taught that. And from what she said to OP, I have to wonder if she intended to keep this sugar daddy after entering a relationship. It's a really sketchy situation all around, and one that hopefully more parents will educate their children about after hearing this story. My stepfather licked my face and then called me privileged. I'm a 17-year-old assigned female at birth. I have a split household, meaning that my parents were never married and live separate lives, and I go to each house on a semi-constant schedule. This schedule had to be changed 2 years ago when I was kicked out by my 35-year-old stepfather. I'm at my dad's house Sunday night to Friday and go to my mom's Friday night to Sunday night. This varies somewhat, but I'm usually fine with it. But this past weekend has been actual torture for me. It started on Friday night, when my mom brought my stepfather home from work. When they got home, I was watching anime and drawing. After my mom went to bed, my stepfather and I began to talk. Our relationship has been, well, unpleasant. I've had some of the most traumatic experiences of my life because of him, fueling a sort of spiteful rebelliousness I developed. I'm extremely protective of my belongings, and practically live a second life where I can be myself. Because if I try to be myself around my family, things don't turn out so well for me. Anyway, my stepfather and I started talking, and to my dismay, the topic of women's healthcare rights came up. I don't even remember how, but I know that my stepfather is the one that brought it up first. I couldn't quite get a read on what his opinion was until later on in the conversation, where he compared women who abort their babies against the father's wishes to criminals, and brought up how some women go out and get knocked up just to abort their babies repeatedly. Of course, I understand that you should never use healthcare rights like that, but he made it sound like there was no forgiveness for people who abort their children. He failed to bring up victims of forced non-consensual encounters. He called both women and men stupid if they sleep together and abort the accidental baby. I was already in a sour mood at this point. I despise having this conversation with people like him because he has absolutely no sympathy for women who want to make that choice. I understand that the topic is less than pleasant, but making certain women out to be monsters is extreme to me. Then he was trying to explain biology and aromanticism to me. I, who was tired since this was about midnight, wasn't really following too much. I ended up having a brain fart and started arguing with him, saying some of the terms he was using didn't mean what he thought they meant. After we somehow managed to clear up what he meant, he said that all the young people at his job talk about it, which he hates. He then asked me where I learned what aromanticism meant. I was honest and told him it was from a YouTube video. He did not like this answer at all. Admittedly, my track record with the internet and him is not the cleanest. But this was different. The video I'm talking about is in no way, shape, or form bad. In fact, it's quite educational. But he automatically took this information that I was giving him about aromanticism as something bad. He got in my face and began talking over me, and I was unable to explain anything to him as he tore into me. He was telling me that I wasn't to look at anything like that on his internet, and that he'd report me himself if I tried to show my little sister, which I wasn't going to do. He said that when I'm 18, he's no longer legally responsible for me, and that I am to be out of his house. Then he got up to go downstairs. At this point, I was on the verge of tears, because this always seems to happen, and what I just learned about my stepfather was horrifying. I could no longer overlook the many, many terrible things he's done to me. I realized then that I couldn't keep trying to love this horrible man anymore, no matter what he did or how much my mom tried convincing me. When he got up, I also got up, since I didn't feel like drawing or watching anything anymore. I was going to throw away some of my mom's garbage, but my stepdad offered to instead. Fine, it's the least he can do, I guess. But when I went to hand it to him, he grabbed my arm and hugged me, which is normal, I guess. I started crying then, since I was just getting too upset. But then he effing licked me. Licked my face. He said, "Cowlick," and then he walked away. I couldn't handle it. When he was gone, I cried silently and went to bed. This morning, I woke up to my mom gone and my stepfather unconscious downstairs. I guess he was watching some old VHS tapes he had on the old TV down there. My little sister woke me up, which I'm used to, by telling me this fact. I was kind of peeved about it. Whatever, I had some laundry to do, and fed my little sister blueberry muffins and grapes, turning on a movie she wanted to watch, and sitting back, drawing in my lined notebook. I'd like to note that this definitely wasn't the traditional sketchbook. I'm not into drawing objects that I'm viewing. I'm really into some fandoms, so I draw lots of fan art and original characters. Some of this art is, well, it's not exactly safe for work, but I do keep it away from my little sisters. I'd rather not traumatize them with art of fictional characters they love. Eventually, my stepdad came upstairs and told me that my laundry was done. Great. I went down to switch it over. But when I came back upstairs, he was looking through my sketchbook. He hadn't done this in a long time, but I was still upset. This sketchbook, out of all of them, was probably one of my tamer ones, but still, I didn't want him going through it regardless. He stopped on a drawing of some indie game characters I had started but never finished. It was just the head and arm of one character, very obviously not completed, and he asked me about it. He said he hated it when I left drawings unfinished, and I immediately knew what he was getting at. He told me it was wasteful and that I shouldn't do it. I'd heard it literally a million times before, and I am trying harder to fill sheets of paper, but it's harder than he makes it out to be. Then he said, "Nothing screams ADHD white privilege like that." I was kind of shocked. Note, I don't have ADHD, and while I am white, I don't see it as something I take advantage of. I was fuming. This is something he always does, and I finally had enough. I took my sketchbook and packed it into my bag, moving it away from him and sitting next to it as the conversation seemingly continued. I wasn't paying much attention, though. I know he called me a liar when I said I didn't know I was supposed to watch my sister today while he went for an appointment, but that's about it. He said my mom told me, which she didn't. He went to his appointment, I brought my sister to a fast food place, brought her back to the house when I knew he was back, and then drove to a cafe in a different city so I wouldn't feel like I was being watched. I'm scared to talk to my mom, so I've decided the best thing to do is send this post to my dad. I originally didn't want to do this, since he's celebrating his anniversary with his wife, but I ultimately concluded that he'd want to know about this. It's a good thing OP got out of there, although it's odd that they left when he made the white privilege accusation instead of after he licked their face. The whole cowlick thing is also very odd. I can honestly say I've never heard that before. I don't know if it's supposed to be an inside joke or if the man is just unhinged. By the way, in case anyone is unaware, the bit about the OP being an assigned female at birth is meant to imply that they generally present as a girl while identifying as non-binary with their friend group. It would seem they either haven't tried identifying this way at home or simply gave up because of their parents' reactions. Either way, there's been no update yet on what happened after this OP reached out to their dad. But I can imagine how most dads would react if you told them that an angry man just licked their daughter's face. It's unfortunate that this OP can't talk to their mother, but things might be getting really rough for the stepdad once real daddy gets home. The real complication, though, is that OP seems pretty fond of the little sister. Can OP get out of this house without losing that bond? Leave us a comment and let us know how you'd handle the issue yourself. Click one of the videos on screen right now.